So hey, I've decided to pick back up the idea of making a Championcraft history video, but this time I'm going to just be doing it freestyle, rather than reading off a script. This is definitely not due to the fact that reading off a script I sound like a zombie. Don't know what you're on about. Okay, that's exactly why. But, yeah, I just think it's better if I just freestyle it. Mainly because, like I said, I sound like a fucking zombie when I read off a script, and also, well, by the end of the recording, I sounded completely uninterested. So, I'm thinking maybe if I freestyle it, and not stick to a script, that it may come up better. I may be completely wrong, and if I am, well, you're not going to be seeing this. But, well, we'll see how that goes. So, before I start with the Wheelie Whale segment, I do want to say that a lot of this information is just ripped straight from the Discord server. So yeah, pretty much, without Champion documenting the history, I wouldn't be able to make this video. So, if you somehow end up seeing this, then thanks for actually keeping the timeline of events. Alright, so, the Wheelie Whale realm was an SMP realm, and it started, I think it was sometime around the end of November. Yeah, that would have been the end of November, because it ended on the 30th of December, because it actually turns out that the Wheelie Whale realm was running on the free trial of Minecraft Realm to Bedrock, so you only get a month. Keep in mind though, I don't really remember quite a lot of this, and the Wheelie Whale time was actually not documented that much. So let's have a look. So the realm was just your basic SMP realm, essentially. The player base was, well, it was active, but it wasn't, of course, we didn't have that many players on any given time because of Mojang's 10-player limit to realms, unfortunately. But you would essentially be fighting to get on the realm when it was still up and running. From what I remember, my house was just slightly south, or maybe even north, I don't know, it wasn't really like proper direction. Anyway, my house was just either slightly north or south of spawn. I do have the screenshots, so you should be seeing them on screen now. I'm recording the audio separate, so I don't really know how this is going to turn out. But anyway, it wasn't like that big of a build, just more of a small little rectangle box with a roof on it. It was actually quite a quiet area when I first started building there. I only even built there because the rest of the town was already pretty packed. But like, by the time I joined the next day, it was already like surrounded by other houses, so I think it was safe to say that the place was actually building pretty quickly. Of course, it wasn't long after that I think we had the first grief. I don't think I have any images of the griefing on Wheelie Whale's realm, so I can't show that, unfortunately. But yeah, after the grief, I'm pretty sure the realm was reset for that then, back to the ungriefed thing. But yeah, then after that, nothing interesting really happened. That was the only real thing with the Wheelie Whale realm, though. That, like, nothing interesting really happened. So, there isn't actually much to talk about, unfortunately, for Wheelie Whale. Which is a shame, because this what pretty much kickstarted most of the Championcraft stuff. Well, of course, you know, you had a few more hackers join over the coming days, but since he was still advertising the realm, then that was bound to happen. But yeah, nothing really interesting happened. I mean, the most interesting thing that happened after all that was Wheelie announcing that the realm was on the trial version. I already mentioned that earlier. So yeah, that's pretty much everything that's happened in like on the Wheelie Whale realm. Now, in the actual timeline of events, Symbian opened a realm in between the time of Wheelie Whale and Championcraft Season 1. Although, personally I think that either A, deserves its own video, or B, it deserves to have Symbian himself cover it rather than me cover it. So, for this I'm just going to move straight on to Championcraft Season 1. So, I actually joined later on in Season 1, so I wasn't there for like the opening of the realm. Although I don't think that many people actually were though, because reading the timeline in the Discord server, Champion actually made the realm, and he had people already in, like, working with him on the realm before we started advertising it on Reddit. So, yeah, actually. Now, from what I've gathered as well, when I joined, the realm was actually at its peak player base for the season. I didn't actually get the invite from Reddit though. I actually was invited by Champion himself over Xbox. So I suppose that's an achievement in itself, I guess. Either way, by the time I'd already joined, there was a fully established nether highway, and also food generator, I think. Although I actually may have been season 2 instead though. There was also like farms you had on the spawn, which you could, I think you could take home. I actually can't remember that well. There's also a second town that had been established, where I think was where I set up shop, I think. I don't know, because you had the main spawn area, and then you had the, well, I say the slums. But it was an area where, like, you could essentially live if you hadn't got the materials to build your own house yet. So I stayed there for about a day or two, and then I said, you know what, fuck it. I actually want to get a proper house built. So I built one up, and I have screenshots of it, so I'll of course show them. But typically, not even after a week that I'd been on and built that fucking, well, I think mansion wasn't that big. But after I built the house up, there was a mass server grief, because of course there was. Why wouldn't there be? I have a screenshot actually of my house after the state of the grief. So you'll see the screenshot now, I'd imagine. So think of that with like the entire like server. It wasn't particularly pleasant. Let's just say that. So of course the server was naturally rolled back at some point, but I wasn't there for that. I had already pretty much just stopped playing on the server for a bit. It wasn't until, I'd say about a while after, that Champion announced on the Discord server that the realm had in fact been reloaded and season 1 is coming to an end. So let me just check the Discord timeline a sec. Ah yes, here we are. So after community feedback, he began work on the spawn for season 2 along with all the ideas for it. And for the last week, all rules are removed from the realm, and it turns into an anarchy server. The last day of season 1, though, however, did bring the rules back, and everyone pretty much logged back in just to have a last-minute tour in the world. And according to the logs, that is everything for season 1. Now, before I move on to season 2, I think it does go without saying that this little video I'm making now does in no way does justice to the entire timeline of season 1 to 3 of Championcraft and Wheelie Whale's Realm. This is just more of a quick little video that I put together because I wanted just to at least cover the history, because no one had done it, at least when I started doing this. Now, the version that I originally made, that I said I was going to scrap because it sounded like a robot on it, was a lot longer than this will most likely be. So like I said, this is just more of a brief history just to fill everyone in who's never heard of Championcraft in their life. So anyway, season 2 was a thing, and it was by far the best season. Well, at least in terms of what actually happened in it, and, well, content as well, I'd say. Although some people might say season 1 was better because they didn't like the whole nations theme we had going. Season 3 was also nations as well, but I'll cover that in more detail in season 3 segment. So, unlike in my original idea for this video, I'm not going to just completely read everything off from the timeline for season 2, since there is a lot to go through. So I'd rather just, I'd say, do the more important parts of it. So, let's start then, shall we? So, of course, season 2 began about, I'd say about a week or two after season 1 finished completely. And some of the first nations started to form, because this, of course, was a nation's realm. Well, this season 2 was anyway. So we had the British Empire, Germany, the Communist Republic, Florida, Scotland, Grashelm, and a few others, just, you know, to start off the nations list. I'm not going to completely list all of them because, well, like I said, this is more of just a brief history rather than a full-on explanation. And again, I can never do the entire timeline justice. So, of course, for this being a nation's realm, you could start wars with other nations. And one of the first major wars, actually, of Season 2 was, I think, between Great Britain, Scotland, and Grasham? Oh yeah, and Germany, I think. Let's have a look. It is here now, actually, on the timeline. Right, so it goes as so. German members were allegedly caught stealing from Scotland, so, of course, in retaliation, Scotland declared war on Germany. So, following this, for whatever reason, the British Empire decided to declare war on Scotland to fight with Germany. The first battle is arranged and preparations are made, and Scotland starts a spontaneous battle in Berlin without permission from Champion. Oh, and by the way, for wars to actually take place along with battles, they had to be cleared with Champion ahead of time. So, after this then, we actually decided to say, you know what, no, we're going to build a proper battlefield and we're just going to not fight, essentially, until the battle. But unfortunately, and by they I mean I think it was Scotland and I think it was someone else with Scotland, though I think it may have just been Scotland for the first thing. But they ended up griefing the battle, so Britain pulled out of the war, basically because they couldn't keep to the rules of fair play, I guess. One of the next, I say big events, wasn't that big, but there was a hacker that joined. They were caught duplicating, actually. Then in retaliation to being caught, they decided to completely demolish Britain. I think they ended up taking a few other nations as well, and of course, in response, they got banned. I may be wrong on this, but I think this hacker, there was at least another hacker, but he kept joining constantly through all accounts. But I think his original name was Boomersman or something. He may still even be on the original Championcraft server now, for all I know. But he kept constantly coming back and alternate accounts essentially and griefing with hacks. Of course, nothing that interesting happens for a while because many of us are still dealing with the Boomersman guy. I don't know. It may have been him. He may have joined later on in the season. Honestly, I can't remember that much about Season 2. But, yeah, nothing interesting really happened because we were constantly having to roll back because of the constant griefing. So, yeah, it wasn't that fun, to be honest. Like, at least the start. Next was another war, actually. It was between France, Grashel, and the Communist Republic. Oh, by the way, France was essentially a rebranded Scotland. 3 of the members basically left to make a new nation, and from what I remember, the remains of Scotland was given to someone else, but they eventually merged into another nation, so Scotland was completely collapsed by the end. Anyway, that war though was manually ended by Champion after it dragged out for too long, and it resulted in the Communist Republic losing territory. And again, the realm actually gets a bit of quiet time. Also more nations start to form. And the British Empire, which is the nation I was in, I do have screenshots which I'll show on screen at some point. But they decided to buy Pandora for nothing and plan to honour their cause and continue building on that land. It was also around this time that a mega alliance was formed, which is called the... I'm probably going to butcher this, but I'm going to try anyway. The Dialytrope. This mega alliance was made up of Great Britain, Germany, I believe, along with Grashhelm, at least at the start anyway. Of course, later on in the season, France eventually joined after a peace treaty and all that was signed between Britain and France. Basically, yeah, there's some issues between us and France. We didn't really get along well. Until eventually I just said, you know what, fuck it. I messaged both of them. I said, look, I can't be asked this constant fucking bickering. How about we just bury it and go from there? And it actually ended up working, so yeah. I mean, even in Season 3, the France members actually ended up joining Britain, so I mean, I suppose in the end it all actually worked out okay. Of course, before France joined, though, there was another war, which I think we dubbed the Championcraft World War. Let's see if actually what I can find on it. Of course, the entirety of the Dialytre was in it on one side. I think France and the Communist Republic. So, yeah, the Communist Republic was still kicking by this point, so France and them decided to team up. It says here, actually, on the thing, that France attempted to invade Britain 6 times and failed each of those 6, so that's a bit unfortunate for them. And again, then a truce was called to the first battle. Again, it was quiet then until the Wrath joined, which was one of the more controversial nations. So, there is rumours going around of them duplicating items, essentially, using the old piston and chest method. Which, also, duplication of items was banned on the server. Because, well, for obvious reasons, really. So, after being accused by, most of the Dialytre, they decided to join the war on the side of France and the Communist Republic. Of course, then they don't obey the rules of a truce until the war, and they decided to spit on us and completely grief Britain. What's next? Ah, yes. Because of the rumours and all that of them duplicating, and a member actually being caught duplicating, the server pretty much goes into a massive uproar. It's what it is, I suppose, isn't it? Of course, while all this is happening, of course, the World War is still going on, which the Dialytre won, mainly because, well, it's a massive mega alliance containing of about 4 nations. Honestly, to be completely fair to the Communist Republic and France, there wasn't exactly a lot they could do. The Wrath also completely collapses at this point because they don't have any claims. So, also the whole point of the war as well, you're meant to have a claim before you can go to war. They supposedly had a claim, but they just never paid for it. But yeah, and also because they didn't pay for it, we could essentially just enter whenever we wanted. So in retaliation, when we got grief, we went and completely demolished whatever they had inside their claim. Though following that, though, most of the Wrath members were actually banned, funnily enough. Though this probably was due to the fact that Champion ended up getting around to banning the members after we all pretty much nagged him to do so. Because not only were there allegations of hacking as well, but of course duping is punishable by a ban. So when Champion got around to banning them, they actually of course get banned. Although funnily enough, quite a few of the members were actually invited back after being cleared of duping or hacking. Although most did eventually leave after either getting bored of the server or they were banned again for duplicating. So, funny enough though, one of the members actually did join Britain. They weren't there for that long because they eventually left on their own terms. So, then of course we had another length of time where everything was just quiet, so you actually had time to build up your claims and some more nations ended up being formed. And it was still relatively quiet then for quite a while until another nation joined called Fire Apple, which we named Firestorm. Now, this is another one of the controversial nations, mainly because the apparent leader there was one of the previous members of Wrath and wanted to completely destroy the server, essentially. That's literally what they said. I'm not even fucking joking. I can't make this shit up. So, of course, as you can imagine, they were immediately hated by pretty much everyone on the server. Although, funnily enough, just recently, Champion himself actually said that he was the owner of Firespite. Or Firestorm, sorry. Firespite was also another name for it. But yeah, he basically admitted that he was the leader. He wanted to know what it was like to run a nation. And yeah, he basically ran the nation. Although he was pretty much hated for it. To be fair though, at the time we didn't actually know it was Champion. So I guess he got to see firsthand what it was like if you piss off the entire fucking server. Although Champion did say though that he mainly just did it because he wanted to stir up some sort of controversy just to keep the place interesting. Which honestly I don't blame him for doing, because it did keep quite a lot of players around for longer. I mean, I even stayed around and became more active because of it. But of course, Champion was doing this deliberately and trying to annoy as many people as possible. So because of this, inevitably a war broke out between them and Mexicana, along with USA, China and France. They essentially get demolished, and they essentially have to surrender and lose their claim. The leader then also leaves, causing Firestorm to completely collapse and break down. Most of the other members also leave as well. Now, I think that was like the last major interesting thing that happened on the server. Yeah, next was the Anarchy event, actually. It happened sometime later on in the season. On the actual timeline of events, it says that the first Anarchy event post was posted on the 12th of the 6th, 2020. So that was sometime around June, I believe. So that's the, of course, first Anarchy event they have of this. Yeah, keep in mind, first Anarchy event. So there's also news of a Season 2 reset going around, and then Champion himself actually confirms that this reset will happen. At the end then, pretty much the server essentially dies while everyone's waiting for Season 3. In response then, Champion kicks off the second and final Anarchy event of the season, and Season 3 begins. Oh, also, I just realised I haven't exactly left many opportunities to show some screenshots for Season 2. Again, I don't actually have that many screenshots because I didn't think ahead of time to actually take that many screenshots. I've got a screenshot of like the full, well, I say full timeline. It's like it's most of London from a certain angle, which I'll save that for the end of Season 3 because we go back to that at some point. I got a picture of my basement that I made and a picture of my bedroom, but that's literally all I got of Season 2 for some reason. I really should have actually started taking screenshots. And to be honest, I feel completely stupid for not actually taking some. Speaking of feeling stupid for not taking screenshots, we'll get to that now when I start Season 3. So, before I actually start talking about Season 3, I think it's important to actually take into consideration the context of which the season started. So, ideally we were originally going to wait for the 1.16 update to come out. I think it was so, rather than like having to go thousands of blocks out then to end up finding all the new nether stuff, we could just immediately have them upon entering the nether. Of course that didn't actually end up happening because people got impatient. But another major thing we were waiting on as well was for Mojang to add the dedicated servers to the console editions. Of course, if you play on Windows 10 edition or mobile editions, you can add or make your own dedicated servers. Of course, on the console editions though, you don't have that feature, unfortunately. You're just stuck with the basic servers that you're given by Microsoft, and that's it, really. So, you can already imagine that people weren't exactly happy when we couldn't migrate to a full-blown server and we're still stuck to the 10-player limit of a realm. So that did actually affect people's interest in the season. Again, it started off strong, mainly because of the hype coming off from Season 2, but after about, I'd say, about a week or two in, maybe 3 weeks, the player base did start to dwindle then. I think that during peak hours, you normally find about 8 people on after about the 3rd week. But before I start talking about the player base dropping off and stuff, I do still want to cover more of the actual timeline of events. The thing is though, like Season 1 and Whaley World, Season 3 wasn't that well documented. Well, in comparison to Season 2 at least. Yeah, all we've got is just essentially the creation of a couple of nations. The creations of religions as well was also added in Season 2, but I never really mentioned it because it wasn't brought up in the timeline. But there's some new religions formed for Season 3, and that was pretty much about it. That's all we've got in the actual timeline here. So, a lot of this I'm just going to have to basically recount from memory, unfortunately. So if it comes off a bit sloppy, then that's more my fault than the fault of the people who were responsible for the timeline. So keep in mind, I'm still part of the British Empire at this point, and we were busy pretty much building up London. We were waiting for the 1.16 update, of course, because we wanted to use the new Blackstone bricks and all that good new nether stuff for the housing. It took a while to build because, of course, you have to grind for the nether stuff, and I couldn't for the life of me get a fucking basalt generator to work. I go on working in my own world now, but it's a bit late for that, innit? But I didn't know how to get one of them to work, and we also still had to fly thousands of blocks out because people couldn't keep out of the nether. So you have to find the basalt biomes and get all the blackstone manually, unfortunately, because we didn't really know you could get it from bartering with piglins. But anyway, I'm starting to drag on now anyway. So we got the first major row of houses built, and I think it was around this time then that a nation joined that had a beef with us for whatever reason. I did have a... Okay, speaking of screenshots actually now. Only one screenshot I took throughout the entirety of Season 3. And that was of a fucking sign. Now once I think, maybe I should take a screenshot of London. Nope. Just a fucking sign on a wall. So, I may just chuck that in just to show you what the sign said. But we had issues with a nation called Axiom or something. We pretty much demolished them in the war. Because I discovered chemical weapons are a thing. And by getting a crossbow or triple shot and loading it with tipped arrows of harming 2, you can basically one-shot a person in full netherite. There is literally fuck all they can do against it, which is kind of broken. We're banned, luckily, for the war. So, obviously, we inevitably won with that tactic. Cheap? Yeah, but I was getting kind of pissed off at this point because it kept constantly bugging us and even destroyed the spider spawner we found. So, we had to go. Because they did eventually leave after we totally demolished them. So, it wasn't long after this, then, that the realm actually started to die. Mainly because Champions himself actually said that he was going to leave. It says here on the 4th of the 7th, that's 4th of July, he says that he is leaving as owner of the server, and he ended up selecting Gamer Legend of Great Britain to be a sort of a puppet leader. Some nations collapse, mainly because the leaders left. Probably because Champion said he was leaving, actually. Hush was also then added as a co-owner. But then Hush gets demoted, so does Gamer, because Champion actually returns on the 15th of July. And he sticks around then for a bit, until, of course, the end of the season. What's next? Oh yeah. So, we didn't have much going on, and even at peak times now, towards the end of the season, you'd be getting like 4 players on. I'm talking like peak times now, so American times, because that's where most of the players are from America, I think, anyway. So, of course, dwindling numbers now, so I just carried on working on Britain. So did Games Line, who was leader of Britain. And then Champion said he's closing the realm, essentially. The realm did, before it completely shut down, the realm closed for a few days and then reopened. That was mainly because there was a massive grief at spawn where you would just die if you tried to go through the spawn portal. I don't know how it happened. We couldn't find the command block. It just started going to shit basically towards the end. So yeah, he basically said he doesn't feel like running the server anymore, and he was planning on getting one of his friends to do a successor to it, which was the Metroplex. Also, I'm not actually going to cover like the aftermath and stuff like I was in the original video, because I don't know too much about what happened after, so I don't really feel like I have the right to talk about it, since I haven't got a fucking clue what happened. So, the actual closing of the realm itself. So, of course, after the realm reopened, well, we say we fixed the griefing, we didn't fix the spawn portal issue. So we got to spend a day or so in Season 3, and then he said, Champion I mean now, he said that he'd be switching the world to Season 2 for the second to last day. So on the second to last day, I basically had a bit of a nostalgia trip with Season 2. The screenshot that you'll see on screen now was the final screenshot I took of London on that second to last day. And on the final day of the season, actually, we reverted back to the Season 1 world. This was the final day of Championcraft, of which everything ended pretty much. Yeah, we had a tour. I spoke up with some of the members, like, I can't actually remember who was still around at this point. But basically, we all walked around Season 1, had some nostalgia trips, and, you know, reminisced on the good times we had throughout Season 1 to 3. It was kind of sad that it ended the way it did, but, I mean, hey, I wouldn't have the last of the 2 seasons any other way, I suppose. So, Season 3 actually did then officially come to an end, with Champion just stopping the realm, unfortunately. However, like I said earlier, we did have the successor realm, but that quickly died, unfortunately. But like I said, I'm not going to cover that in much detail, because I don't really have the right to talk about it, to be honest. So, other miscellaneous details, though, about Season 3, though, before I finish this off, was that it was actually originally called Season 2.5. Because I mentioned earlier that people got impatient, so we started the season before the 1.16 update. The original intention, of course, was to have Season 3 just be Season 2.5, and then we'd switch to a dedicated server, assuming they were added at 1.16. They were not, so we just stuck to the current world we were on, essentially, and renamed it to Season 3. And that is pretty much everything that I have to cover about the past 3 seasons and Willy Whale's Realm, really. So again, I've pretty much said everything I've wanted to say about the seasons as well as Willy Whale's Realm. If you ended up making it this far into the video, I just actually want to say thanks for watching this far. I'm genuinely surprised you managed to stick around. And I'm going to use this segment to talk a bit more about the channel. So, I don't actually know if my other video is still up. So, I've made a few videos, but I've of course taken them all down, marked them as private and stuff. But I did make a video during the Season 3 of Championcraft, which I'm pretty sure I ended up taking down. If not, I'll leave it up so you can watch it. If I did take it down though, well, this will be the first video actually on the channel that I'm not going to take down, well, at least for a while anyway. So again, I actually want to say thanks for actually watching this far, if anyone is still watching. And I am going to probably leave this here. I will see you in the next video, whenever that may be.